At, and U.S. lawmakers are now officially supporting Ukraine. The House on Wednesday voting almost unanimously across party lines to urge a ceasefire and declare Ukraine's sovereignty. Republican Congressman Billy Long voted in favor of the resolution. He joins me now. Good morning to you. Is this more than symbolic?
No, we're going to do everything that we possibly can to support the Ukrainian people. And the first thing we need to do is quit buying oil from Vladimir Putin. We're sponsoring this war. We're putting money into this war, billions of dollars every day, and it needs to stop. Justin Trudeau in Canada led the way. They're not buying any more Russian oil. And to think that we are continuing, and we haven't sanctioned Russian oil. We put these other sanctions on, but let's do something that matters. Pouring vodka that's probably made in the United States by a French company that has a Russian name or used to be a Russian vodka, that's symbolic. Let's do something that matters. I don't know if you saw Congresswoman Victoria Sparks from Indiana, born in Ukraine, educated in Ukraine. She said that her 95-year-old mother lived through Stalin in Ukraine, lived through Hitler in Ukraine. She's not seen anything like the genocide that's going on there now. 95-year-old that saw both Stalin and Hitler and said that this ex-KGB agent that may be losing his mind is worse than either of those two. So think about that for a minute.
You mentioned Representative Sparks, again, like you said, born in Ukraine, calling the war on Ukraine a genocide. There were some Republicans who did not vote for the resolution. Paul Gosar, Thomas Massie, Matt Rosendale. Do you know why?
I have no clue. I see things like that every day in Congress, and a lot of people like to stand out for various reasons, to get their name out in the press and to maybe raise money off of it. I have no clue in the world why anyone could have voted against that resolution yesterday.
What would you tell President Biden to do differently? This is something that has rallied both Republicans and Democrats, standing for Ukraine, standing with Ukraine. But is there something that we need to do with a new approach to how U.S.-Ukrainian relations move going forward?
I think so. Politics should stop at the water's edge in a situation like this, so I don't want to be overly critical of the president, but I would certainly say that when he got in office and stopped Keystone XL pipeline on the first day, a few months later allowed Nord Stream 2 to go through the natural gas pipeline in Russia, none of this makes any sense at all. We need the sanctions that we've implemented so far need to be enforced. Sanctions do you no good if you don't enforce them. Kim Jong-un, North Korea, has more sanctions on them than anyone, but they're not enforced, so they really just a paper tiger. And then on the sanctions, like I said, we need to sanction their oil. We need to quit buying their oil. We need to drill here. We need to frack here. We can produce oil cleaner than anyone. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee. At the time, I was on the Energy Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce. When we voted in a very bipartisan fashion, we fought long and hard to be able to export LNG, liquefied natural gas. We need to go back to that. That was a tough thing to get done. Took several years, but we did. But like I said, on January 19th, the day before Biden was sworn in, we were energy independent. We were a net exporter of oil, and we need to get back there.
At some point, do you think the U.S. should up the ante, not just in regards to oil, but in regards to protecting the interests of not just the U.S., but the world with this crisis?
If Ukraine, of course, Putin has never wanted Ukraine to be in NATO. If they were a NATO ally, a lot more could have been done and would have been done. But the intelligence that we had on this was stellar. It was like Vladimir Putin was wearing a GoPro. We had very good intelligence. We knew what was going to happen, and yet the world stood by and let him do exactly what he wants to do. And like Victoria Sparks said the other day, if you want to occupy a country, you don't just demolish that country. And this war has not gone well for Vladimir Putin at all. He thought he'd have it under control in 3 days. The Russian soldiers were told they were going on training missions and thought they'd be welcomed with open arms. And the Ukrainian people have stood tall and proud. But at the end of the day, Molotov cocktails that they manufacture in their kitchens are not going to stop the Russian army.
What will stop them?
Well, hopefully the inner circle. You'd think that they've got 7-year-olds in prison now for protesting in Russia. People don't know what freedom is. People don't understand what freedom truly is. And arresting 7-year-olds for holding up signs that say end the war, putting them in prison in Russia,
It's a whole other world. It's a whole other world there. And I know that this situation and people's seeing this play out on social media and on television. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.